Ladies and gentlemen, there is a crisis in our generation, not of opportunity, not of talent, not even of access. The crisis is of identity. Too many people are busy trying to be seen before they've learned to be valuable. We've confused availability with worth, and as a result, we offer ourselves to people, places, and situations that were never qualified to handle our presence. Let me ask you something. When did you last assess your value? We live in a world that tells us be everywhere, show up for everything, say yes to everyone. But what if I told you that your constant availability is robbing you of your true power? You see, value is not determined by how often you show up. Value is determined by how necessary your presence is when you arrive. This message today is not about ego, it's about essence. It's about becoming so aligned with your purpose, so grounded in your identity, so clear about your worth that you stop running after approval and start walking in authority. The topic is simple, but its implications are life-changing. Be valuable, not available. Be valuable, not available. In a world that constantly demands your presence, your attention, and your energy, the first step toward becoming valuable is understanding your worth. You cannot become valuable to others until you have discovered and embraced the value within yourself. This isn't about arrogance, it's about awareness. Knowing your worth gives you the confidence to stop chasing validation and start attracting purpose. Let me put it this way. Gold doesn't advertise itself. Diamonds don't go knocking on doors trying to prove their brilliance. Their rarity, quality, and significance attract those who understand value. Likewise, when you understand your intrinsic worth, you begin to position yourself differently in life. You stop trying to be everywhere, pleasing everyone, and start being intentional with where you invest your time and presence. Many people live their lives trying to be constantly available, answering every call, attending every invitation, stretching themselves thin to meet the expectations of others. But availability without discernment leads to exhaustion and mediocrity. People begin to treat you as common, not because you are, but because you've presented yourself as such. Let me tell you a story about Lisa. Lisa was a gifted graphic designer, brimming with creativity, but she was also desperate for approval. Every time a client reached out, she would respond immediately. She offered her services at discounted prices, worked overtime without charging extra, and even let clients make endless revisions without boundaries. She thought this availability would grow her business, but instead it drained her spirit and devalued her talent. People began to see her as the cheap option, someone they could use but not respect. One day, Lisa decided to change. She re-evaluated her pricing, set boundaries around her work hours, and started saying no to unreasonable demands. At first, she lost a few clients, but the ones who stayed respected her more, and soon new clients came, clients who valued her work and were willing to pay for it. By understanding her worth, Lisa transitioned from being used to being valued. This same principle applies to relationships, careers, ministry, and friendships. When you don't understand your worth, you'll allow people to misuse your time, abuse your talents, and overlook your contribution. But when you recognize that your time is a currency and your presence is an investment, you begin to manage both with wisdom. Look at nature. The sun is not available all the time. It rises and sets with discipline, yet we all wait for it, plan our day around it, and respect its schedule. Why? Because it's valuable. It sustains life. Its presence is powerful, but not constant. That scarcity enhances its value. Ask yourself, are you so readily available that people take you for granted? Do you give away your time too freely to those who haven't earned access to your life? If so, it's time for a shift. Value yourself enough to say no without guilt. Value your energy enough to protect your peace. Value your potential enough to guard your time. Even in the business world, this principle is seen in branding. High-extent brands don't discount themselves just to make sales. In fact, some increase their value by becoming less accessible. They create exclusivity, and that exclusivity creates desire. People line up, wait months, and pay premiums because they believe what they're getting is worth it. The same applies to you. You were not created to be common. You were not meant to be everywhere all the time, doing everything for everyone. You are a person of purpose, gifted with greatness, designed for impact. But impact only happens when intention meets value, and value begins with self-awareness. So stop selling yourself short. You are not a clearance item marked down and picked over. You are a one-of-a-kind masterpiece. And masterpieces are not available to just anyone at any time. Because once you start operating from a place of value, the world will begin to treat you accordingly. One of the most common mistakes people make is chasing others in an attempt to feel wanted or needed. Whether it's a relationship, a business opportunity, a friendship, or a career connection, many find themselves in pursuit of people, hoping to be seen, accepted, or validated. But here's the truth. Anything you chase has the power to run away from you. And if you spend your life chasing people, you'll often lose sight of your purpose. When you are constantly available to people who don't value you, you are essentially communicating that your presence has no cost, and anything that costs nothing will be treated like it's worth nothing. That's why it's dangerous to build your life around pleasing people or earning their attention. You were never designed to chase people. You were designed to attract the right ones through the clarity of your purpose. Let's consider an eagle. An eagle doesn't fly with sparrows. It doesn't chase after pigeons. It soars high. And by simply being what it is, strong, focused, and unapologetically itself, it draws respect without ever having to demand it. Your purpose works the same way. When you focus on becoming the person you were created to be, the right people, those who align with your vision, your values, your growth, will find their way to you. Look at the story of David in the Bible. Before he was ever king, he was just a shepherd boy, alone in the field, singing, writing psalms, and slaying lions and bears in silence. He wasn't chasing anyone. He wasn't trying to impress people. He was becoming excellent in private. And because he was focused on his purpose, the day came when purpose called for him. His value found its moment. He didn't have to chase the throne came looking for him. That same principle applies today. If you're constantly texting someone who never initiates conversation, if you're always the one reaching out, showing up, and giving more than you receive, you may be investing in the wrong people. Valuable individuals don't pursue validation, they pursue growth. And in that pursuit, they draw those who respect their journey. Take relationships, for example. How many women or men have given away their hearts, bodies, and futures to someone simply because they didn't want to be alone? They made themselves available at all times, answered every call, and adjusted their standards just to keep someone close. But in doing so, they lost their identity. They became a shell of who they were, hoping that by being constantly available, they would finally be enough. But availability doesn't create love. Value does. In business, the same pattern appears. Entrepreneurs undervalue their services to attract clients. Artists give away their gifts for exposure. Creators compromise their originality to go viral. But in every case, the more they chase others, the more they feel unseen, unheard, and unappreciated. Here's a truth that can transform your life. When you stop chasing people and start building yourself, your life becomes magnetic. Opportunities come. Healthy relationships appear. Partnerships align. Not because you begged for them, but because you became someone worth finding. Let me share a story. Marcus was a gifted speaker with a heart for empowering youth, but for years he went from school to school, begging to be given a platform. He offered to speak for free, hoping someone would give him a chance. Most turned him down. One day, he stopped asking. Instead, he created his own YouTube channel, sharing weekly videos filled with purpose, passion, and truth. Slowly, his audience grew. Principals started reaching out. Invitations began flooding in. Why? Because Marcus stopped chasing people and started developing his value. His purpose made room for him. Here's the bottom line. The right people will never need to be chased, and the wrong people will never see your worth, no matter how fast you run after them. You must understand this. When you're always available, you lose the mystique of value. But when you're focused on purpose, you walk with dignity, and dignity attracts honor. Let your focus be on becoming, not pursuing, because when you operate from purpose, you no longer need to chase what's meant for you. It will find you. There's a reason rare items are more expensive than common ones. Scarcity increases value. The fewer people have access to something, the more desirable it becomes. This truth isn't just reserved for economics. It applies to your life, your presence, your time, and your influence. One of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to be everywhere. Always showing up, always saying yes, always making themselves accessible to anyone who asks. But the problem with being everywhere is that it eventually leads to being overlooked. When you're always available, you become too familiar. And familiarity often leads to a lack of appreciation. Think about it. The most valuable assets in the world, gold, diamonds, rare art, even time itself, are not just appreciated because of their usefulness. They're appreciated because they are limited. You can't have them whenever you want. They are controlled, protected, and only released with intention. Your time, your energy, your presence. These are treasures. And if you give them away without limits, people will treat them like they're disposable. But when you become intentional with where you show up, how often and for whom, you begin to shift how others see you. Let me give you a simple example. Consider a mentor or speaker whose words deeply impact you. Now imagine if that person sent you messages every day, showed up at every event, commented on every post, and tried to insert themselves into every conversation. Eventually, you'd begin to take them for granted. Their voice wouldn't hit the same. Their presence wouldn't carry the same weight. Why? Because what was once special has now become predictable, and what's predictable often loses its power. Now, contrast that with someone who only speaks when necessary, someone who shows up rarely, but every time they do, something shifts. That person commands the room. Why? Because their presence is a privilege, not a given. That's the posture of someone who understands value. There's an old saying, you teach people how to treat you. And it's absolutely true. If you teach people that they can call you at any hour, use your gifts freely, demand your attention, and pull you in every direction, you've trained them to devalue you. But if you teach people that your time has purpose, that your presence is a gift, and that access must be earned, then you shift from being taken for granted to being sought after. Let's look at a real life story. Danielle was an exceptional strategist working in a nonprofit. She always said yes to meetings, to events, to every email. Her superiors appreciated her, but they didn't promote her. She was seen as reliable, but not irreplaceable. Then one day, she decided to pivot. She began protecting her calendar, attending only meetings where her input was truly needed, and prioritizing deep, focused work over constant availability. Over time, her presence in a room became more noticeable. When she spoke, people listened, and within a year, she was promoted. Not because she was more talented than before, but because her perceived value had increased. Why? She was no longer everywhere. She was intentional. Even in relationships, this applies. If someone knows you'll always be there, regardless of how they treat you, they'll never value you. But when you become selective about who you give your time to, it sends a message. I know what I'm worth. And people rise to the level of how you value yourself. There's nothing wrong with being kind, generous, and available at times, but it must be done with wisdom. Because if you're always on, people will start to tune you out. But when you are strategic about your presence, you remain impactful. Think about the ocean tide. It doesn't crash on the shore all day long. It comes in waves. It's predictable in its rhythm, but its power is never lost. It knows when to pull back and when to advance. That's how you must move. Know when to retreat, when to recharge, when to withhold your presence, so that when you do show up, people feel it. Remember, scarcity is not selfishness, it's strategy. Protecting your time is not arrogance. You don't have to be everywhere to be effective. In fact, the most effective people are those who have mastered the art of being present with purpose. So the next time you feel the pressure to say yes to everything, to show up everywhere, to please everyone, pause and ask yourself, will this increase or decrease my value? Because in a world that expects availability, the rarest thing you can be is intentional, There's a currency that's more valuable than money, more precious than gold, and more fleeting than opportunity. It's time. Once it's spent, you can't get it back. Yet many people give it away like it costs nothing. They trade their minutes for distractions, their hours for obligations, and their days for things that don't align with their destiny. If you truly want to be valuable, you must learn to protect your time. Think about this. You can lose money and earn it back. You can lose possessions and replace them, but time, once it's gone, it's gone. That's why the most successful people on earth, regardless of their industry, protect their time with fierce discipline. They treat it like a treasure, not a tip. Let's make this practical. Have you ever looked up at the end of the day and asked yourself, where did the time go? If so, you're not alone. Many people live on autopilot, saying yes to every request, attending every meeting, scrolling endlessly through social media, jumping at every notification until their entire day is gone. But if you don't control your time, someone else will. Let me tell you about Alex, a young man with a dream to start his own consulting business. For years, he worked a 9-to-5 while helping friends, volunteering at events, answering every call and text, and running errands for others. His heart was in the right place, but his calendar was not. He had a vision, but no time to work on it. One day, Alex hit a wall. He realized that his dream would die, not because he lacked talent, but because he didn't protect his time. So, he made a radical change. He started waking up 2 hours earlier to invest in his business. He turned off notifications during work blocks. He set office hours for when he would respond to calls or messages. And most importantly, he started saying no with grace, but without guilt. Within 6 months, Alex launched his business. Within a year, he replaced his full-time income. What changed? Not his intelligence, not his resources, just his stewardship of time. Now, this isn't just about entrepreneurship. This applies to relationships, personal growth, health, and even spiritual life. If you don't schedule time for what matters, life will fill your schedule with what doesn't. Even Jesus, arguably the most sought-after man to ever walk the earth, protected his time. He often withdrew from crowds to pray. He chose moments of solitude. He didn't try to be everywhere at once. Why? Because he understood that purpose requires focus, and focus requires boundaries. Ask yourself, how much of your day is spent doing things that drain you rather than develop you? How often do you give time to people who don't value it? How many times have you delayed your dream because of distractions? The truth is, people who don't respect their own time will never respect yours. That's why it's not rude to set boundaries. It's responsible. Being valuable means understanding that every minute you spend has a cost. And if you don't see yourself as valuable, you'll waste your most valuable asset. Look at your calendar like a budget. You wouldn't give away your paycheck to everyone who asked. So why give your time that way? Invest it wisely in things that build your future, fuel your passion, strengthen your spirit, and deepen your relation. Protecting your time also means protecting your energy. Sometimes the biggest time wasters aren't activities, they're people. People who gossip, people who complain, people who pull you into their chaos. You must learn to protect your peace by limiting access to those who constantly withdraw but never deposit. Here's the truth. You can't help everyone. And if you try, you lose yourself in the process. Your purpose deserves your full attention. Your future depends on your ability to say no to what's good so you can say yes to what's great. Being busy isn't the same as being productive. And being available doesn't mean you're being valuable. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to withdraw, to recharge, refocus, and realign. So today, make a decision. Value your time. Guard your schedule. Eliminate distractions. Choose your company wisely. Because time is not just how you measure life, it's how you build it. And when you protect your time, you protect your value. One of the greatest tragedies in life is not being unrecognized. It's being underpriced. Too many people step into rooms, relationships, or opportunities not knowing their true worth. And as a result, they offer their gifts, their time, their ideas even their body, without first determining their value. You cannot expect people to honor what you haven't learned to respect in yourself. Before you offer your work, before you commit your energy, before you say yes to the next opportunity, you must ask a powerful question. Do I know what I'm worth? When you don't know your worth, you'll settle, you'll undercharge, you'll overgive, you'll remain in environments that drain you because you think it's all you deserve. And here's the dangerous part. If you allow people to underpay you for your gifts, they'll believe they're doing you a favor. Imagine walking into a high-end store, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Rolex, and seeing everything priced at $5. What would you think? You'd assume it's fake, right? Why? Because value sets expectation, the price communicates the worth. The same applies to you. You are not cheap. Your skills are not ordinary. Your time is not disposable. Your wisdom is not common. But if you keep giving away your best for free, just to be liked, just to get in the room, just to avoid being alone, you'll train people to devalue you. Let's talk about Leila, a gifted photographer. Her work was stunning, rich, with emotion, detail, and precision. But because she didn't know her worth, she started out charging $50 per. Clients booked her, but often canceled last minute, showed up late, or demanded extra edits. She was exhausted and broke. One day, a mentor told her, "You've got to stop selling yourself like a hobby. You're an artist." So Leila rebranded. She raised her prices to $500. She invested in her image. She showcased the experience of working with her. And guess what? The clients who truly valued her started showing up. Fewer cancellations, more respect, better working conditions, and more joy. What changed? Not her talent, but her perception of her own value. Sometimes the issue isn't the world, it's the invoice you're giving it. You can't expect people to pay premium prices for something you're offering at a discount. And this doesn't just apply to business, it applies to relationships too. If you don't know your worth, you'll stay in toxic relationships longer than you should. You'll ignore red flags because you're afraid you won't find better. You lower your standards just to be chosen. But hear this, being chosen means nothing if you had to shrink to fit. You are not for everyone, and that's your strength, not your weakness. Diamonds don't try to fit into every jewelry box. They're cut, refined, and displayed in places that honor their brilliance. You must do the same with your life. Don't offer your brilliance to environments that lack the light to see it. Your work, your presence, your energy, all of it flows from your self-worth. And until you raise that internal thermostat, the world around you will keep offering you less. Even Jesus knew his worth. He didn't perform miracles on demand. He didn't allow himself to be used or manipulated. He knew when to walk away, when to remain silent, and when to say no, not out of pride, but out of purpose. So how do you start valuing yourself? Know your strengths. List them, own them. Reflect on your journey. You didn't get here by accident. Study your uniqueness. Nobody sees the world exactly like you do. Set boundaries. Say no when it's necessary. Say yes when it aligns. Surround yourself with people who call out your greatness, not just your availability. You are the asset, not the extra, not the option, not the backup plan. You are the table, not just a seat at it. And when you recognize that, your entire posture changes. So before you offer your work, your time, your commitment, or your presence, ask yourself, am I doing this because I know my worth or because I'm trying to earn it? When you know your worth, the world begins to respond to your value. One of the most heartbreaking things to witness is someone discounting themselves, shrinking, compromising, or pretending just to be accepted, just to be liked, just to be chosen. But hear this truth. Any room you have to shrink to fit isn't a room you were designed for. Discounts may move products off the shelf, but they always cost the brand its power. And many of us have discounted our value just to stay relevant in someone else's story. We've lowered our standards, ignored our convictions, or stayed silent on what we believe just to avoid being rejected. But what if I told you that rejection is often redirection? That being unavailable to people who don't value you is the first step toward positioning yourself for those who do. Let's unpack this. When you discount yourself, you tell the world, I don't believe I'm worth full price. That energy follows you into relationships, job interviews, partnerships, and conversations. It becomes the unspoken message behind your smile, your body language, and your decisions. Real world story. There was a man named Jordan, brilliant, creative, a visionary, but every time he entered a boardroom, he would play small. He didn't want to ruffle feathers or appear arrogant. So he stayed silent even when he had the solution. He undercharged for his services even when he delivered million-dollar results. Why? Because deep down, he feared that being fully himself would push people away. Eventually, Jordan got tired of watching people with half his skill walk through doors he kept knocking on. One day, he decided to stop apologizing for his brilliance. He spoke up in meetings. He raised his rates. He showed up confidently, not cocky, but sure. And the moment he stopped discounting himself, everything changed. People didn't just hear him, they started seeking him out. Here's the lesson. The world often mirrors back to you the value you assign to yourself. If you carry yourself like a clearance item, people will treat you like one. But when you show up like a premium product, with clarity, confidence, and standards, those who can't afford you will walk away. And that's exactly what needs to happen. Let me say something to you clearly. You are not meant to be affordable to everyone. Not everyone is supposed to access your time, your energy, your presence, or your heart. And that doesn't make you arrogant, it makes you wise. Even Jesus experienced this. He didn't force himself into towns that rejected him. He didn't perform miracles where there was no faith. He wasn't begging to be received. He was walking in purpose. And because he knew his assignment, he didn't have to discount himself to feel valuable. You don't have to prove your worth to anyone. The right people will recognize it without you auditioning for their approval. So what does this look like practically? In dating, stop staying in relationships where you're tolerated instead of treasured. Stop shrinking just to be someone's type. If they can't handle your full truth, they don't deserve your full presence. In business, stop underpricing your services because you're afraid of losing clients. The ones who see your worth won't blink at your rates, they'll respect them. In friendships, stop being the one who always reaches out, always adjusts, always sacrifices, especially if it's not mutual. Real friends see your worth and reciprocate it. In ministry or service, stop pouring into places that never pour back into you. Even wells run dry without replenishment. You were not created to live on sale. And don't let loneliness, impatience, or insecurity talk you into settling for less than you're worth. Better to wait alone in authenticity than to be accepted in a place that requires you to wear a mask. The moment you stop discounting yourself is the moment you start attracting the right doors, the right people, and the right opportunities. Why? Because you've stopped chasing value and started embodying it. So stand tall, speak up, walk in your power, set your price, not just in business, but in life. You are not a bargain. You are a masterpiece. You were not designed to be everywhere for everyone at every time. Let that sink in. Access to your presence, your time, your wisdom, your love should be something earned, not expected. But too many people walk around acting like being available is what makes them valuable. That mindset will drain your life. One of the most empowering things you can do is recognize that you are the prize. You're not being arrogant. You're being intentional. Making access to you a privilege is about understanding that your presence carries weight, and not everyone has the capacity to handle it. When something is common, it's often taken for granted. But when something is rare, it's treated with reverence. Think about it. Why do people fly thousands of miles to see the Mona Lisa? Because it's not hanging in every hallway. Its limited access increases its perceived value. That's how you must treat your life, not like a public bus, but like a first-class ticket. Let's talk real life. Have you ever had someone in your life who only called when they needed something? Who only showed up when it was convenient for them, yet every time you dropped what you were doing, rearranged your schedule, and made room for them? Only to be left feeling empty? That's the cost of unguarded access. Now consider someone like Serena. She's a high-performing leader, a woman of faith, grace, and strategy. Early in her journey, she tried to be everything to everyone. Every event, every favor, every text, every "can you help me real quick?" She was there. But slowly she realized something painful. People loved her output, but didn't value her being. They consumed her time without ever asking how she was doing. One day, Serena decided to change the rules. She started guarding her calendar like it was sacred, because it was. She scheduled quiet time, personal growth time, and no response time. She didn't ghost people. She just stopped making herself overly accessible. And guess what happened? Some people got upset, but the right ones respected her more. Because when you raise your value, you also raise the standards of those who want to access it. Even Jesus was strategic with his access. He had 12 disciples, but only 3 were invited to certain intimate moments. He loved the crowds, but he often withdrew to pray. He understood that even divinity in human form had boundaries. Here's the principle: not everyone deserves front row seats in your life. It's not about being cold or distant. It's about being wise. Your energy is finite. Your emotional bandwidth is not unlimited. If you're always pouring and never preserving, you'll become a well that runs dry. And no one can draw from an empty well, not even you. So how do you protect your access? Audit your circle. Who replenishes you? Who drains you? Who only comes with a hand out, not a heart open? Define your boundaries. What are your non-negotiables? When is your sacred time? When are you unavailable and unashamed to say it? Reclaim your yes. Every yes to someone else is a no to yourself. Make sure your yes is aligned with your purpose, not your people-pleasing tendencies. Don't explain your boundaries. You're not obligated to justify your self-care. No is a full sentence. And "I'm not available" is a legitimate answer. Some people only want you accessible because it benefits them. The moment you stop giving unlimited access, you'll see who was truly there for you and who was just there for what you provided. When you make access to you a privilege, not a right, you reposition yourself. You stop chasing validation and start walking in vision. You stop feeling guilty for not showing up to every invite, every crisis, every request. And you start feeling powerful because you're finally present for yourself. Let them earn it. Let them honor it. Let them meet you at the level you now require. Because when you know your value, you don't just show up anywhere, and you don't let just anyone show up in your space. Let's face it, sometimes it feels like you're being overlooked. You're putting in the work, building yourself, saying no to the wrong things, guarding your value, and yet the recognition hasn't come. The door hasn't opened, the call hasn't been returned, and in that silence, it's easy to wonder, did I make a mistake? Should I have been more available? But let me tell you, just because you're not seen right now doesn't mean you're not valuable. Sometimes God hides you to refine you. Think about a seed. When it's planted in the soil, it disappears. No applause, no audience, no recognition. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. But underground, the most critical transformation is taking place. Roots are forming. Strength is being built. It's not rejection. It's preparation. You see, we live in a world obsessed with visibility. Everyone wants to be seen, to be liked, to go viral. But value isn't built on attention. It's built on intention. And sometimes the most powerful thing God can do for your destiny is hide you until you're ready to carry what you're called to. Let me share a story. Marcus was a musician, talented, anointed, passionate. But while others were getting record deals and followers, he was still playing in small rooms, writing songs that no one heard. He started to question his path. One night, in a moment of frustration, he prayed, "God, why haven't you opened the door?" And he felt a whisper in his spirit, "Because I'm building the foundation first. If I open the door now, your gift will take you where your character can't keep you." That moment changed him. He leaned into his development, worked in the shadows, perfected his craft. And in time, the right door opened, not because he was available to everything, but because he became valuable in the unseen place. Don't confuse silence with absence. Don't confuse delay with denial. Your hidden season is holy. It's where your confidence is forged. It's where your integrity is tested. It's where you learn not to depend on validation from crowds, but on clarity from your Creator. Remember this, even diamonds are formed under pressure and hidden deep beneath the surface. Their value is not reduced by their invisibility. In fact, it's their rarity and hiddenness that make them precious. In this final point, you must grasp a deep truth. You were not created to be popular. You were created to be powerful. And power takes time. Maturity takes time. Wisdom takes time. Stop trying to microwave your destiny. Stop comparing your journey to someone else's highlight reel. When you understand that being valuable means being selective, being prepared, and sometimes being hidden, you won't be anxious about not being invited, followed, or celebrated, because you'll know that when the right moment comes, your value will speak louder than your availability ever could. So what should you do in the hidden season? Keep building. Just because no one is watching doesn't mean it's not worth it. Stay faithful. God sees what man doesn't, and he rewards in secret what was cultivated in private. Sharpen your gift. Practice, learn, grow, prepare like the opportunity is tomorrow. Protect your heart. Don't allow bitterness to grow in the soil where your breakthrough is being planted. Speak life over yourself. Remind yourself daily, I'm not forgotten. I'm being refined. This is not punishment. It's positioning. This is not rejection. It's redirection. And when the season shifts, and it will, you won't have to chase the stage. The stage will come looking for you because you weren't just available, you were valuable. As we close, I want you to remember this truth. You were never meant to live on sale. You were created with purpose, wrapped in potential, and filled with power. And the moment you stop living to be chosen, stop discounting yourself, stop giving unlimited access, stop chasing attention, that's the moment you become dangerous in the best way. Because a person who knows their value becomes a person who cannot be manipulated. They cannot be bought cheaply. They cannot be ignored for long. They don't compete, they create. They don't rush, they rise. They don't beg to be seen. They build in silence until they're revealed. Let this be your declaration from this day forward. I am not for sale. I am not desperate. I am not common. I am a solution, not an accessory. I am not just available. I am valuable. So guard your energy, protect your peace, raise your standard, and walk in the power of your identity. Because when you know who you are, you'll never again settle for less than what you carry. Be valuable, not available. Thank you.